Hi, everybody. Hola a todos. So this is the second of 3 videos that I'm making for you all to review some very key Spanish 1 concepts in advance of your live composition, which is next week and which you are all signing up for now. Thank you very much for being engaged in that process, by the way. What are we going to talk about in this presentation? Well, ladies and gentlemen, señores y señoritas y señoras, we're going to start with stating names by using me llamo, se llama, and se llaman. That'll be the first thing we talk about. We're also going to talk about conjugating the irregular stem changing verb tener in the present tense. And we're going to talk about using tener idioms to express both age, that's with a number and then the word años after conjugated tener, and using tener to talk about wanting to do things, and that's with ganas de and a verb in infinitive after conjugated tener. And again, we're going to take a really structural approach to this, mostly because in the questionnaires that you filled out for me, a lot of you indicated that you felt really concerned about the fact that you were having difficulty putting together sentences in Spanish, the structure of the language. And this happens to be a particular strength for me, and I enjoy explaining it. So that's how we're going to do. Let's get going. So stating names with me llamo, se llama. See, there's that thing I warned you guys about in my first video. I will go back and forth between pronouncing a double L or a Y standardly with a y sound and pronouncing it Argentinianly with a j. And I am sorry, it is not something I have a lot of control over. So me llamo, se llama, and se llaman. I really have to focus to not j those double L's. All right. So to review, go back to textbook page 4, los nombres de los compañeros de clase, and actividad 1. ¿Sí? Also, textbook page 29, las preguntas y las respuestas section. Both of those have these question and answer pairs in them, right? This is one of those things that is much easier if you just accept it as it is in Spanish and don't try to force a translation to English. Trust me. It's in that insistence in thinking, oh, but it's my name is, that people get screwed up. Why? Because me llamo does not mean my name. It's not a noun phrase at all. Rather, it is a verb phrase that literally means I call, myself. Llamarse, which is where this conjugated form comes from, is a reflexive verb. And we're going to be learning about reflexive verbs in Capítulo 5, Chapter 5. But the sneaky thing that every single Spanish textbook does, and I've taught for 21 years, so I've seen a lot of them, is they show you a reflexive verb, this one, llamarse, really early on, and they never explain to you what it is because they think that you'll just accept it and go with it, and mostly students don't. Nope. So, first things first. When you say me llamo, you are not saying my name is. You are saying I call myself. If you have to think about it in English, think about it that way, at least be accurate. Okay? And just as we would say, I call myself Karen, I call myself Mark. I mean, we wouldn't really say this because who in the world says I call myself in English? But if you did it, you would follow it immediately with a name. And that is what you do in Spanish too. Right? To that end, saying me llamo es is incorrect and it does not exist in the language. This is not my name is. No, señores, señoras y señoritas. That is, I call myself is. And it is agrammatical and not acceptable. Okay? Yes, the phrase mi nombre es. That's literally my name is. Mi nombre es exists. Sure, that's not what we're working with here. Here we are working with the reflexive verb llamarse, specifically its yo form in this case, me llamo, to say I call myself. I call myself. And the only thing that belongs after that is your name. So, really, learn the construction. To state your own name, as I just said, it's me llamo and your name. Or if you want to be really emphatic, as I was telling you in the other video, then you can put the subject pronoun yo in front of it and say, yo me llamo, and then your name. But it is not necessary or better to do this. It's just emphatic, right? Because overtly, the subject of the reflexive form me llamo is yo. Nobody else could be that subject. It goes without saying. So when you say it, you're over-clarifying. And in that over-clarification, what you're doing is emphasizing. And it's the equivalent of saying, my name is, or rather, I call myself, as opposed to all the rest of y'all who don't call yourself this way, right? It's not necessary. Start your sentence with just the verb phrase. You do not need the subject pronoun yo here. Spanish is a pro-drop language. It does want you to drop your subject nouns and pronouns whenever possible. And it is totally possible here. And I need to take a sip of beverage because my throat is itching. One moment, please. Oh, that's better. All right. So I would say, me llamo Karen, because that's my name. Notice the structure. Me llamo and my name. And I can also say, me llamo Karen Jones, which makes me switch out of the Spanish-y pronunciation of my first name because the Jones just kills it, right? But in any case, the structure stays constant. Me llamo, which is our verb phrase. It's the reflexive pronoun me plus the conjugated verb llamo. And then the name. Me llamo plus my own name. It's simple if you let it be. Just let it be simple. Me llamo and your name. Nothing else. And me llamo and your own name answers two possible questions. Either, ¿cómo te llamas? Or, ¿cómo se llama usted? Both of these questions mean the same thing. The only difference is the level of formality. This is the formal question for asking someone what their name is, and this is the informal question for asking one person, pardon me, what his or her name is. And I still need more water. Gosh. All right. So somebody asks you, ¿Cómo te llamas? You answer, me llamo, and your name. Somebody is treating you with respect and says, ¿Cómo se llama usted? You still answer, me llamo, and your own name. Okay? It's that easy. Let it be easy. To talk about one other person's name, then it is se llama and their name. That's it. This is the third person singular form of the reflexive verb llamarse. Again, we're going to get to reflexive verbs overtly in capítulo 5 very soon. For now, try just accepting this. And again, this doesn't mean his or her name is his or her name. It's not a noun phrase. It's a verb phrase. It means he calls himself or she calls herself, depending on the gender of the person when we're talking about naming another person as we are here, right? So let's see some examples. Of course, you can also specify the person's relationship to you before the verb, as in, mi padre se llama, or mi madre se llama. And this goes right along with what we were seeing in the first video. This is a third person singular conjugation of this verb. And third person singular forms have lots of potential subjects. And so you do need to specify what the subject is to avoid being overly ambiguous, right? So this subject is here for disambiguation. It's necessary, right? It's not repetitive, like when we say yo me llamo. That's repetitive. This is not. So here's our subject, mi padre, and here's our verb phrase, se llama. And here's my subject noun phrase, mi madre, and here's the verb phrase that agrees, and it is, se llama, right? And in both cases, it would be followed by their name, right? So let's have a look. I would say, mi madre se llama Naomi, and mi padre se llama Bud. Yeah, that's his name. He's 87 years old. His real name is Wilbur, but he's gone by Bud since he was like 15 years old, and you can't blame him, right? But in any case, what's important to notice here, our verb phrase, se llama, plus one other person's name. Here's the se llama, here's her name, right? And of course, over here on the left-hand side, we have a subject-noun phrase to disambiguate who calls herself this way. Who does? Oh, my mother, right? Same thing here. We have our subject-noun phrase, mi padre, our third-person singular verb phrase for this reflexive verb, se llama, and then his name. See how the structure works. You can really depend on the structure of Spanish. Don't make it any harder than this. And of course, these sample sentences answer the questions, ¿Cómo se llama tu madre? Mi madre se llama Naomi. And ¿Cómo se llama tu padre? Mi padre se llama Bud. That's how that works. Let's talk about how to talk about, let's use the word talk and the word about a lot. Let's talk about how to state the names of two or more people. To do that, it is then se llaman, which is the third person plural form of this reflexive verb, and then name one, and then an E, right? The letter Y in Spanish, which means and, it's a conjunction, and then name two. Let's look at this. Oh, and of course, again, you can also specify the people's relationship to you before the verb, as in mis padres, right? Of course, we would want to do this. Otherwise, you're like, who calls themselves that way? Mis padres, my parents do. So we have mis padres, and then our verb phrase, se llaman, and then first name, and then an E, and then the second name. Let's see this all the way out. So I would say, mis padres se llaman Naomi y Bud. This is how it works, right? Subject noun, third person plural subject. Conjugated form of the reflexive verb llamarse, third person plural. To agree. So, se llaman followed by name one, then an E, and then name two, right? Again, the subject is what we've seen all along. The structure of the sentence is what we've seen all along, even in the first video. Subject noun, phrase, conjugated verb, predicate complement that completes the meaning of the verb. But in any case, it's se llaman plus other person number one's name, then an E, and then other person number two's name. And of course, the sample sentence answers the question, ¿Cómo se llaman tus padres? ¿Cómo se llaman tus padres? Mis padres se llaman Naomi y Bud. Right? And of course, my mom's name pronounced Spanishly is Naomi, but my mom is not Hispanic, Latina at all. As I told many of you in the questionnaire responses, I am the only person in my entire family who speaks more than one language, just me. So anyway, ¿Cómo se llaman tus padres? Mis padres se llaman Naomi y Bud. Just accept it the way it is right now. To talk about the names of two or more people, it's se llaman plus name one plus an E plus name two. Trust the structure. And literally this means they call themselves name one and name two. That's what's going on there. All right, let's practice. So, and practiquemos is just the imperative form of the verb practicar. Here's the question. ¿Cómo te llamas? What did you answer? I'll give you a minute. Hopefully, you answered me llamo and your own name. For me, me llamo Karen, right? Notice how this answer, by the way, obeys all the rules about answering question word questions that I laid out for you in the Answering Questions with Complete Sentences slideshow. Those rules really do work. What were those rules? When you're, oh, shoot. Man, I don't know what it is when I record, but I get the worst phlegm. Sorry, I know that's not fun for you to listen to. So the rules were this for question word questions. You always start and look before the conjugated verb to see if there is a te there. If there is, it will change to me. That becomes the first word in your answer. Oh, looky, there it is. Then you look at the verb. If that verb is a tu form, and llamas is, it will change to a yo form in the answer. Oh, llamo, there it is. And then the last thing you do is you supply the information the question wants for you. You call yourself how? You call yourself, of course, by your own name, right? The rules work. All right, what else do we have? More practice. Practiquemos más. Here's the question. ¿Cómo se llama tu mejor amigo? Give me a minute. What'd you answer? Hopefully, you said se llama and his name, because of course it's totally legit now to drop your entire subject noun phrase. We know who you're talking about because it was established in the question, right? But if you wanted to be extra crossing your T's and dotting your I's, you could also have said, mi mejor amigo se llama, and then his name. You can maintain the subject noun phrase with this third person singular subject if you would like. That is not wrong or overdetermined. I would say, mi mejor amigo se llama Víctor, because that's his name. All right, one more. Contestemos una más, una pregunta más. Vamos a ver. Here's the question. ¿Cómo se llaman tus abuelos? Think about it. ¿Cómo se llaman tus abuelos? What'd you answer? I'll give you another sec. I'm going to take some water again. Hopefully, you said either se llaman, then the first name, y, and then the second name, because remember, we've established who the verb is referring to in the question, so you don't need to repeat it in the answer, right? Or, if you want, you can maintain your subject noun phrase with this third person plural subject and say, mis abuelos se llaman, and then name one, y, and name two. For me, and I would just choose my maternal grandparents here because I was closer to them, I would say, mis abuelos se llaman Helen y Phil. Now, point aside, I am way older than most of you all. I just turned 49 yesterday, so my grandparents are all dead. But I'm not worrying about that right here because we don't know the imperfect. That's the tense that I would need to talk about my grandparents' names in the past. We don't have past tenses yet. Even if they're dead, just use the present for now. It's what we've got. It's totally fine. But notice the structure anyway, right? Subject, mis abuelos. Verb phrase, se llaman. Name one, Helen. Y for aunt. Name two, Phil. Mis abuelos se llaman Helen y Phil. It's true. All right, moving on. Topic shift. Let's conjugate the verb tener in the present tense. So your book doesn't tell you this, but tener isn't really that irregular. Sure, its yo form tengo is irregular and it must be memorized because you can't get it through derivation. But the rest of the verb functions as a normal stem changing ER verb. Its stem changes E to IE, which I will always write with the shorthand, by the way. If you see me doing that, I'm talking about a verb that stem changes E to IE. That is the standard shorthand for it. What does this mean, though? Okay, we're going to study stem changing verbs in depth in Capítulo 5, but you may as well learn exactly how they work now because you're going to need that information for many other verbs you've already learned. Your book, which I don't like, presents stem changing verbs to you without explaining what stem changing verbs are. And what they do by doing this is they make it seem like verbs that are basically mostly regular, but just part of a different family, are irregular and need to be memorized. And that's not true. The only form of tener that you need to memorize is the irregular yo form tengo. The rest can all be gotten to through standard derivation, as long as you know the fact that what this verb is, in its majority, is an E to IE stem changing verb. Ugh, don't get me started about this textbook. All right. So, always when we conjugate in Spanish, no matter the tense, we focus on two things. We focus on stem and on ending. That's all conjugation consists of. So, about that stem. We always get to the stem, and this is also called deriving it, the same way. we always begin by removing the AR, ER, or IR infinitive ending. We just cut it right off, and that gives us a stem. So let's do that to tener, right? Here we go. We chop off the ER infinitive ending, and we get a stem, ten, T-E-N, right? That's where we start from. Now, a good thing to note before we go on is that most verbs in Spanish don't have stem changes. Mostly, once we derive the stem, we just add the conjugated ending to it. That's the ending part, right? Stem and ending. We know what ending to use by looking at the subject of the sentence. With normal verbs that don't stem change, once we derive the stem, we just add the conjugated ending and we're done. And I'll show you this with one of the most common, completely normal AR verbs in the language, hablar, right? Hablar. Lovely. The first thing we do is we chop off that AR infinitive ending, and that derives the stem for us, which is H-A-B-L, habl, right? Now, let's imagine our subject is yo, right? All we're going to do to that stem, to the H-A-B-L, is add the present tense ending for AR verbs when the subject is yo, and that happens to be an O, right? And that's how we get hablo. Hablo is the yo form of hablar, just stem and ending. We didn't have to do a thing. It was beautiful. Yay. So the only thing that's different with stem changing verbs is that instead of leaving the stem alone, whenever the subject is not nosotros or vosotros, but we're not going to use vosotros forms in this course because we learn Spanish for the Latin American environment and vosotros is only used in Spain. Whenever the subject is not nosotros, we change the stem vowel in a certain predictable, constant way. Hello. Once that change is made to the stem vowel, then we add the right conjugated ending for the sentence's subject. Stem and ending, the conjugation process. The normal thing, as we're going to see in the last video in this series, is for any stem change to also happen in the yo form. But as I said at the top, tener has an irregular yo form, so the E in the stem stays E for the yo form, which is not normal, okay? So we have two forms of tener where the stem vowel E, that's this stem vowel, right? Because we get rid of the ending. This stem vowel will not change, and those two forms are the irregular yo form, tengo, right? Here's the unchanged E in the stem. Here's our conjugated ending O. And the nosotros form, tenemos, right? Here's our unchanged E in the stem. How did we get here? We derived the stem by removing the ER infinitive ending, so that left us with TEN. We left the stem alone, and we added the nosotros form ending for all ER verbs in the present tense, which is hemos. And that's how we got tenemos, right? No stem change, neither in the yo form nor the nosotros form of this verb. Tengo has to be memorized, tenemos. All right. In the other three present tense forms, the stem E has to change to an IE before we can add a conjugated ending. This is actually completely normal. It's what stem changing verbs do. It's not irregular. The only part of tener that's irregular is its yo form, tengo. So, once we make the needed E to IE stem change, then we add the right conjugated ending for the sentence's subject. Again, it's just stem and ending, stem and ending. That's how you conjugate. So, the three forms of tener then, where the stem E changes to an IE, are of course the three remaining forms. It's the tu form, tienes, right? What did we do? Well, we derived our stem by removing the ER infinitive ending, leaving us with TEN. Then we changed the E in the stem to an IE, right? And so that gave us the changed stem, tien. And to that changed stem, we added the correct tu form ending for all ER verbs in the present tense, which is es. And that's how we got tienes. And the exact same thing with the third person singular form, tiene. How did we do this? Derive the stem by removing the ER infinitive ending. That gives us our preliminary stem, ten. We make the E to IE stem change, and that gives us this changed stem. And to that changed stem, we add the conjugated ending for all third-person singular subjects for ER verbs in the present tense, which is the letter E, and that's how we got to tiene, tiene. Lastly, third-person plural, tienen, right? How did we get here? Same way. We went through the process. Derive the stem by removing the ER infinitive ending. That gives us a preliminary stem, ten. We change the stem E to an IE. That gives us our change stem, tien. To that change stem, we add the conjugated ending en, which is our third person plural conjugated ending in the present tense for all ER verbs. And that gives us tienen, tienen. So let's take it all together. This is tener in the present tense. And again, conjugating really is just stem and ending. Okay? So we have the yo form, which is irregular and must be memorized. Tengo. We have the tú form, which shows its stem change. Tienes. Totally normal. Third person singular form also shows its stem change. Tiene. The nosotros form. There is never a stem change in any present tense nosotros form because of rules in Spanish about voice stress and where stem changes can occur, which I will talk to you about not now, but when we are in capítulo 5, okay? For now, as long as you remember that there is never a stem change in any present tense nosotros form, in the regular present tense, there won't be. We see that, no change to the stem. Tenemos. Perfect. And finally, our third person plural form, which of course shows its stem change, tienen. You don't have to memorize these. The only one you have to memorize is tengo. The rest you can all get to through the conjugation process. Derive the stem, change the stem if needed, add the conjugated ending. Tengo, tienes, tiene, tenemos, tienen. You can see all these conjugated forms on textbook page 52. All right. Let's use some tener idioms then. Age in Spanish is always expressed with this construction. Conjugated tener plus a number plus años. Always. This is not like English. Just accept it. Please. So I would say, tengo 49 años. It's this structure. Conjugated form of tener plus number plus year. By the way, make sure you say años. That's an ñ. If you say años, you're saying a completely different word and it's not a good one. Pronunciation matters. Años, all right? Tengo 49 años. As of yesterday, that became true. This sentence can answer two questions. ¿Cuántos años tienes? And or ¿Cuántos años tiene usted? As we've seen over and over already in this series of videos, these questions mean the exact same thing. Literally, how many years do you have? Colloquially, how old are you? Yes. The only difference is the level of formality. This is the informal question, ¿Cuántos años tienes? This is the one that you would ask to somebody your age or younger. And this one, ¿Cuántos años tiene usted? Is the polite one. That would be the question that you would ask to me, for example, or to somebody significantly older than you. We always like to treat people who are older than us that we don't know well politely, which it's not the most polite thing to just up and ask somebody their age, but whatever. Again, level of formality does matter in Spanish. Courtesy matters a lot. So, ¿Cuántos años tienes? Or ¿Cuántos años tiene usted? Either way, the sentence in my case that answers it, is this one. Tengo 49 años. The yo form of tener plus a number plus años answers both of these questions. All right, let's keep going. Remember, this is our structure. Can't say it enough. Conjugated tener plus number plus años. That's how you express age. So for my dad, and notice that I've started, again, specifying my subject now because tiene, the third person singular form of tener, has lots of potential subjects. So it's not overdetermination if I specify that, oh yeah, I'm talking about my dad here. It's not obvious. It needs to be clarified, right? So, mi padre tiene 87 años. He was 38 when I was born. is not a young man. Look at the structure though. Here's our subject, and then conjugated form of tener plus a number plus años. The construction holds true. Just learn it. For my mom, oh, by the way, before I get, this sentence answers the question, ¿Cuántos años tiene tu padre? For my mom, I would say, mi madre tiene 79 años. She's 8 years younger than my dad, right? Again, look, the structure holds constant. Third person singular subject plus third person singular conjugation of tener plus number plus the word años. Plus the word años, like that. That's how you express your age. Mi madre tiene 79 años. And that, of course, answers the question, ¿Cuántos años tiene tu madre? Bien. ¿Sí? Sigamos. Let's keep going. All right, let's look at another tener idiom then, which is using conjugated tener plus ganas de plus whatever verb in infinitive expresses an action that you feel like doing. I need another sip of water. Tengo ganas de beber agua. Not only did I feel like doing it, I did it. All right, so let's say that I wanted to express that I felt like going skiing today. I don't really ski, but whatever. I would say hoy, and hoy is just the word for today. Tengo ganas de esquiar. Let's look at this. What do we have? Conjugated tener, this is the yo form, plus ganas de, plus the verb in infinitive. You can depend on the structure of Spanish, but you gotta know it in order to be able to depend on it. And this sentence answers the question, ¿Qué tienes ganas de hacer hoy? See? And of course, it could also answer the formal question, ¿Qué tiene ganas de hacer usted hoy? Which is quite a mouthful. Your book has a long list of verbs. Ooh, that should be singular. A long list of verbs for things you'd feel like doing. That's textbook page 95 in capítulo 3, las actividades favoritas and las actividades diarias. Those two sections. Oh, good, and the word sections is misspelled. Wow, really awesome proofreading, me. Anyway. Let's talk some more about this. Remember, and by the way, I did proofread this. Our structure is this, conjugated tener plus ganas de plus whatever verb in infinitive expresses the action that the subject feels like doing. And of course, whenever you need to specify your subject, it wasn't necessary with tengo, because tengo's only got one possible subject, yo, right? But when you do need to specify your subject, it goes over here on the left-hand side of your conjugated verb. Standard syntax. Let's see some examples. Say I wanted to say, my aunt feels like swimming. Okay. Mi tía tiene ganas de nadar. Here's my subject, right? Third person singular. So third person singular form of tener, tiene, plus ganas de, plus a verb in infinitive. Not a problem. And that sentence answers the question, ¿Qué tiene ganas de hacer tu tía? Or I could say something about, my male friend feels like going bike riding. Well, that's simple. That's just, mi amigo tiene ganas de andar en bicicleta. Look at the structure. It's the same. Here's our subject, mi amigo. It's a third person singular subject. We do need to specify it, right? Here's our third person singular form of tener in the present tense, tiene. Here's our ever constant ganas de, doesn't change. And then our verb in infinitive, andar, right, to complete it. And of course, this is a whole phrase. Bike riding is an entire 3-word phrase. Andar en bicicleta. Mi amigo tiene ganas de andar en bicicleta. Perfectly fine. And this sentence answers the question, of course, ¿Qué tiene ganas de hacer tu mejor amigo? All right, so that's using the tener idiom, tener ganas de, plus verb in infinitive. And I hope this was helpful to you guys. And there's just one more video in the series, and it will be about more stem changing verbs, because Spanish is a verb-driven language and verbs are the nucleus of every single sentence. They can't exist without them. So any time we spend on verbs is valuable. And also, of course, everything that you've seen in this presentation and the previous one and the one that's coming up, It's all stuff you're going to need for your live composition next week. So I'm not just wasting your time and, parading around my Spanish knowledge. I'm giving you this to help you with things that you're going to need to use. All right. Muchas gracias a todos y hasta pronto. Chao.